Welcome to Questions from the Closet. I'm Ben Shalati.
And I'm Charlie Bird. Each episode, we discuss a question we commonly get asked as LGBTQ Latter-day Saints.
We're not trying to answer this question or come to a consensus, but simply sharing our perspectives. Today's question is, can I be out on my mission?
Ben and I are not terribly diverse, and we share many opinions and life experiences. For example, we both surf goofy, meaning left foot back, right foot forward.
Which is pretty goofy.
So goofy.
However, there are some pretty big differences. For example, we went surfing this last weekend, and I got hurt, and Charlie didn't.
I did not. Tell us about your injury, Ben.
So the second time I tried, it was my very first time surfing when we were in Florida.
Set the stage. We're in Daytona. White sands.
We're in Destin, Florida.
I said Daytona because of cheer. That's embarrassing.
That's very embarrassing.
Destin.
Yeah.
White sands.
Meeting our destiny. And I was this was my second attempt, and I fell off, as one is wont to do. And then I landed in the water, and the surfboard hit me in the face. I've got a nice little spot on my nose.
It just looks like you it looks like you got hit in the face with glasses on.
Yeah, or I got hit with a frisbee. That's basically what it looks like.
Have you gotten hit in the nose with a frisbee before?
Have you not been hit in the face with a frisbee?
I don't think I've played frisbee that much.
I don't either, but I've definitely been hit with a frisbee.
Was I even a college student?
I don't know. You can play after college too. I played frisbee after college. Yeah, but mostly with people who are in college still.
That one, did the side of the board hit you? I'm scared of the little underparts. The little fins underneath.
I'm honestly not sure. And there's also a part where there's an old pier that still had a footing in the ground, and I hit that once too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. So
great.
But the Stefanis took us surfing. It was super fun, and I only got a little hurt. So yeah. Anyway.
We like to provide a variety of voices and perspectives, and today we are so happy to be joined by Elder Carpenter.
Hello. How are you?
Great. Well,
we're so good.
Yeah. Elder Carpenter, tell us a little bit about you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So I was born in Colorado, but kind of a full circle moment for me, actually. I was born in Colorado, but my family lived in Texas for 15 years. And then we moved to Utah and then back to Colorado. And that's where my family lives now. So my family's there where I was born, literally 5 minutes away from my childhood home, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Cool.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, and as you can see, I am a full-time missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I am serving in the California Anaheim mission, which, as some people will call the happiest mission on earth, which, just because of Disneyland.
Disney fan.
That sounds so fun. I would love to serve in the Anaheim mission.
Well, see, you think that Disneyland has a lot of influence on our mission, but it really doesn't. It's really just tourists that come through, but we can't go to the park or anything, so.
Tragedy.
Oh, well, that is super sad.
I've never been
to Disneyland.
Yeah, we probably should have saved that for similarity.
That should have been our similarity and difference.
But I know Disneyland. I did serve in San Bernardino, which is kind of close to where you are.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, but not really. It's coastal California versus inland California is very different.
Right. Yeah, there's a different vibe for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so Elder Carpenter, you're a missionary right now, a full-time missionary. Can you do this podcast?
I give an abundant yes, though we had to jump through a few hoops to make it happen, to be completely transparent. I know that y'all had reached out a little while ago, and the initial response actually was just not a straight up no, but it was we're not going to be able to make this happen because as a full-time missionary, you have a very specific purpose as to what you're doing and where you're serving. And so it wasn't that my mission leaders weren't in support of me doing it, but it was that if we did it 5-6 months ago, let's say, that it could be something they worried would pull me away from my missionary work here with the people here. And so basically my mission president said, but honestly, don't worry about it. I love this. Let's make it happen. And so we're going to find a way. And so that was when I came up with the idea with my mom, actually. She's a queen. And she was like, what if you just did it? Yeah, she is. I love her. Anyway, she is my best friend. I love her with all my heart. But anyway, she came up with the idea with me that what if we just did this in the last transfer? Because then, regardless of what was shared at any point in time, it wouldn't pull me from what I'm doing, which is really, really nice. And I will have gone through my whole 2 years, so I'll have just a little vault of experiences that I could pull from, which I love so, so much. So yes, I can do this, and I have to give credit both to my mom and to my mission president because he's an icon. So
That's so wonderful. So you're in your last transfer,
yeah,
and you're
that
feeling a
is
little bit.
correct. I've been doing my best, believe me. I think knowing like the impact that myself and other missionaries have been able to have, the companions that I've had, and even the impact that I can have now. And this is not being an openly gay missionary. This is just being a missionary in general. Just the other day, actually, it was like 2 days ago, we stopped this lady walking down the street. She was so sweet, walking her dogs, and we just offered her a cute little picture of Jesus Christ. And she was like, "Yeah." And we started a conversation with her, and she ended up opening up about a lot of her personal struggles. You know how it goes. It was really wonderful. And it was just one of those moments where we were able to share something that I've been sharing every day for 2 years. But it was that little reminder of, I came here to bring eternity for people who think that mortality is all we have. And that's pretty dang cool. No matter how long I have left, whether it be 13 days or 18 months, I get to do something as myself that a lot of people don't even think they can do. And that's pretty incredible.
It's beautiful. Yeah. So it sounds like you're not trunky, which is
No,
great.
not yet.
Your mission.
Um, kind of, not really. No, I liked it. I really liked it.
I did not get drunky. I got transferred to a new area from the last 6 weeks,
Uh-huh.
and there was
Oh,
this huge stigma that, like, your last transfer you stop working. So I didn't even tell anyone I was going home until like the day
oh
before I
wow.
left.
That's fun.
Oh wow.
So I was not drunky because I was trying to hide that I was drunky.
Love that for you. That's
Yeah.
great.
So this is a question that we get asked a lot of DMs about this. A lot of people like junior, senior year of high school, they love the gospel, they have desires to serve a mission, but they feel worried about coming out. And most of the time, I'd say it's half and half. Like there's some people who are already out and they're like, I don't know how that's going to impact me once I go into the mission field, the way I'm viewed, the way I'm treated, even like the paperwork process. And then there's other people who are like, I think I want to come out, but I'm not sure if I should wait until post mission. So could you tell us when you came out?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I came out in March of 2019. That was when I came out. And so I graduated high school in 2018. And I felt pretty confident when I was like 15, 16 years old that I wanted to serve a mission. I was like, this is something I want to do. This is something that's important to me. I know that Jesus Christ lives. There's a whole crap ton I do not know, but I know that Jesus Christ lives. And if I can wear his name, that would be pretty special to me. And so I knew I wanted to serve a mission. But what I didn't know is if I wanted to serve a mission as myself or not. And now, don't get me wrong, I think that there's a beauty of being able to put on a tag and go out and give completely of yourself and lose yourself completely. And I think that's part of why anytime, because I've had some people come up to me and say, what do you think about missionaries who went on their mission and came out afterwards, came out of the closet after they came home? What do you think about their mission experience versus yours? And I'm like, I don't think that's something worth comparing because missionary work isn't about me or about self. It's about giving everything of yourself for someone else. And so I had to learn those principles after graduating high school to be able to figure out, okay, am I going to wait until after my mission or am I going to come out beforehand? And the story is so dumb, but we're going to share it and I love it, so it's fine. So in it was maybe 11 p.m. March 2019. My family was living in Lehi, Utah at the time, and I think I was in my second semester at BYU, Idaho. And at the time, I was really, really, as so many people tend to, unfortunately, dealing with a lot of self-loathing, among other things. And granted, it wasn't as bad then as it was previous in my high school experience, but it was still pretty bad. And I was just thinking about why that was. What can I do? Not just what can I think, but what can I do to be me and to know that God loves me as me. And I had seen so many stories, including yours, well, part of yours, Charlie. Actually, no, you hadn't even. Had you even come out at that point, Charlie?
I came out publicly February 2019, so it would have been a month
Okay.
before.
Okay. Yes. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think I had seen your post and on Instagram, and there were other stories circulating social media, and it was maybe 11 p.m. I was in my room, and this is so cheesy, but "Let It Go," the Demi Lovato version, came on shuffle on my speaker. And before this, I was like bawling my eyes out because I just didn't know what to do with myself. And this song comes on. And I am a firm believer that you can feel the spirit while listening to Disney music, because I felt the spirit while I was listening to this song. And
100% you
Spoken like a true
oh,
Anaheim missionary.
can.
that's right. That's absolutely right. Disney is so important. Anyway, so I was listening to this song, and it just hit me really, really hard. And I was like, I'm just so done with not being who I am. And more than that, it was a spiritual moment for me, rather than just a I want everyone to know who I am. Because to be frank, pretty much everyone already knew when I came out. It was not a surprise to anyone, which is just fine. That's totally fine. But it was more for me, I think, at that particular time, and it was a moment for the Savior to be able to say, "Hey, this burden that you're carrying, you can let it go, and that's fine. And I got you because I've been carrying it with you this whole time." And so for the next 4 hours, so from 11 up until like 3 a.m., I sat
Whoa.
there basically writing down my thoughts about if I should come out or when I should come out and how I should come out. And I had this distinct um, personal preference not to come out over social media. I was like, that doesn't feel like something that I want to do, something that's authentic to me. Um, it's like, I don't want to do that. But as I was writing over the course of these few hours, I said a couple of prayers. And in one of those prayers in particular, I got this distinct thought: you need to say something about this so that other people can see. Because you coming out isn't just about you. Like, yes, you had this moment, this spiritual moment to be lifted and to be loved, and to love yourself. But right now, you coming out isn't just going to be about you. And so I spent a good portion of those 4 hours writing up the post that I ended up posting at around 3:30, maybe 4 in the morning. Um, and then I just actively did not sleep that night. And I stayed up until maybe, but I shut my phone off. I like powered it off, threw it across the room, and then I just stayed up until probably about 8 or 9. And then I had the courage to open my phone again and look at everything that, any of the responses. And it was a really beautiful experience. And so once I had come out, um, I felt a lot more courage to be able to say, maybe I can serve as the individual that God created me to be. And maybe that would be worth it. And so it took me time to actually get to the point where I could say that. Because when I came out, that was not the hinge point. That was one of the points for me. Because I had to come out, obviously, if I was going to serve being an openly gay missionary. But um, that was probably the first main experience. Yeah.
Yes, it sounds like you kind of just splashed onto the scene. You're like, I'm just gonna tell everybody right away.
Yeah. Not to my liking. I was like, this is not what I want to do. But I guess this is what's happening now. And that's what happened. So,
And it sounds like you felt like a spiritual prompting to be open and out as a way to honor yourself and also serve other people. It's part of your
yeah.
service.
Yeah.
At that point,
It,
had you started filling out mission papers?
Good question. No, actually, I had not even started my mission papers yet, because when I graduated high school, like I mentioned, I knew I wanted to serve, but I was still wrestling with the idea about serving being open or not. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, I'm just not going to fill out my papers yet. I'm just going to put that on hold. And so I went to school for 3 semesters. And this experience where I came out happened in my second semester. Um,
And coming in, sounds like it was kind of a catalyst to start working on your papers.
yes, I started working on my papers in, let's see, probably. Well, actually, I would have started it shortly after that. Actually, I would have started it maybe 2 or 3 months after that particular time. And my paperwork, from the day that I started working on it to the day I got my call, I'm probably not going to get this exactly right, but it was probably
No
about
one's gonna good.
yeah, no, it was it was a long time. It was probably like 6 or 7 months or more. It was a really long time, just because there were. I mean, that's a whole story, but it was a long time, and I'm grateful that it was, because my mission president and his wife would not have been in the California Anaheim mission had I gone sooner. They got here like a transfer, no, 2 transfers before I did. So
So when you submitted your papers, was the missionary department aware that you were gay?
yeah, they were. When my stake president, thank the Lord, he was incredible. And he was so willing to work with me. And I remember we had a meeting. I went in, and I basically told him, I said, hey, I just want you to know. He already knew that I was gay at this point because I had come out. My whole ward knew. He knew. And so I was like, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about the idea of serving a mission, being open. And the first thing that he said, I'm so grateful for him. The first thing that he said is, well, why not? I'm in complete support of this idea. If the Lord wants you to serve as you, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And that was pretty incredible, because I have heard countless stories of individuals who have worked on their papers, who have been out. I shouldn't say countless, because it's actually not that many people who have wanted to be out, and then their bishop or their stake president or someone else in their ward is pretty discouraging about doing that, or maybe someone in their family. And so they just stop. They just don't keep going. And so my stake president was particularly supportive, and I was really, really grateful for that. And so, yes, he made a note on my mission papers, and we sent the papers in, and the process was kind of a long one, because usually when you submit your papers, and now the way it's supposed to work, right, is you get your call like 2.5 weeks later. That's the idea. Yeah, like that's what it's supposed to be. And he got an email back from Salt Lake about maybe a month later, saying, hey, we would like you to hold another interview with Elder Carpenter, basically asking him some basic questions about his orientation and how comfortable he would be living with other men 24/7, among other things like that. And so that was a month after submitting my papers, and maybe 3 weeks later, he finally got the questions, and then we could schedule an actual meeting. And because he's the stake president, we couldn't schedule it for the next day. So another 2 weeks later, we finally have the meeting, and this was a fun experience. Yeah.
Just make sure I understand correctly. So you send in your papers. You're expecting a call within a few weeks. Instead, your or your stake president gets an email saying, "Hey, you got to do a second interview."
Yeah.
So what was that like for you to kind of like have all this delayed?
I mean, that's a good question. It was more frustrating for my mom than it was for me. I was like, honestly, this gives me time. Like, Lord, you know how nervous I am. Thank you. I was a little nervous just because I didn't know what the questions would entail exactly. But my mom, she was frustrated. She was like, why couldn't these questions have been a part of the initial process, of the initial paperwork? Why couldn't the stake president have had these questions pre-prepared? Had Salt Lake sent these questions to stake president saying, hey, if you have a missionary who's open about this, here are some questions you can ask. These were just some hypotheticals that we were kind of running through our mind, being like, is this a possibility? Is this something that could have made this process faster? But I was okay. I actually was pretty content with it. I didn't feel too stressed about it.
So there is kind of like an extra interview or paperwork portion for missionaries looking to serve who are out before their missions.
As of right now, it seems so, yes. And I'm happy to report, though, that the questions, that's what I was worried about the most, was the actual questions. What are these going to entail? Are these going to make me feel like I'm being treated as someone who needs to be kept a close eye on more so than anyone else? And I don't remember all the questions, if I'm being honest. That was 2 years ago, but I don't remember all of them. But I do remember that there was a theme, and I remember going through the interview. POV, the stake president, we finally meet, And he pulls out the email and he's like, I've never done this before. I don't know of anyone else who has done this before, gone over these questions. And so let's just go through them together because I have no idea what this is going to be like. I was like, okay, let's do it then. And so we go through the questions, and I remember feeling that all of the questions made sense to me anyway. None of them felt particularly offensive. None of them felt like I was being asked something unreasonable. Um, One question, for example, if I can remember, was, just how comfortable are you living with other guys your age all the time? I don't remember how it was worded, but that was basically the question. And I honestly feel like maybe the Lord was helping me feel totally content about that because I've had, my mom included, multiple people who have asked me about these questions and been like, I don't think those questions were fair. I don't think you should have had those questions. And looking back, I didn't feel bad about them at the time. And I'm grateful that I didn't because that didn't end up being a roadblock for me to still want to just keep going and come out here and do what I'm doing. And I know that for other people, it can be. And so for me, I don't think the questions are perfect. And I don't even know if it's the same questions anymore. That was a while ago. It could be different questions or no questions at all. But
I feel like that's very forgiving of you to kind of take that perspective. I was just thinking about like, Ben, you and I both went on missions, and we're both gay, and we're as gay as you are or were before.
Charlie might even be a little gayer.
I might be a little gayer.
maybe so.
But the only difference is the disclosure, right? And so it does kind of like feel like, ooh, strange to me that just because you were open about it would have to go through another set of almost like screening.
Yeah, because you could have just told nobody and wouldn't have had that extra step.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're bringing this up because I'm sure that that's for anyone listening who's thinking about going on mission. That's an important thing to understand and kind of just be prepared for because it sounds like you weren't prepared for that, and neither were your local leaders.
Yeah, because I think it could be strange if you're like, hey everyone, I sent in my mission papers. I'm going to get my call in a few weeks, and then 6 months pass. Sounds like that could be a tough thing.
And that's actively what happened. Like I submitted my papers and I don't know, I think I may have even made like an Instagram story about it or something and just been like, I submitted my papers, like I'm so excited. Whenever it comes in, we're gonna have the opening, all these things. And I remember over the course of the next month or two and more, friends and family reaching out being like, why is it not here yet? Why do you not have your call yet? And so
it's called the gay way.
Facts. but I'm just grateful that for me, like looking back, I don't feel personally like it was terribly a negative experience. And again, I'm grateful because looking back, I can see why it perhaps would have been, but I don't know. I guess the Lord was like, yeah,
take it out.
And the timing worked out right for you.
Yes, the timing did work out right for me because it did take, after we finally did the interview, at that point, it was close to 2 months since I had submitted my papers. 2 months later, we finally have the second interview. We go over it. It was so funny. My stake president, bless his heart, he didn't even know what multiple of the questions even meant. So he was kind of just like, oh, what does this question even mean? Like, what is this asking? And so I would have to explain to him what the question meant and then give him my answer to that question. And so I just chose to look at it as a fun little experience. And it was. But then we submitted that. And about maybe a month later was when we got a response from the missionary department being like, okay, thank you for your responses. We're going over this now, and you should be able to begin like the rest of the process soon, where essentially your paperwork would go to the Quorum of the 12. Because at this point, they had confirmed that my paperwork had not, it hadn't even gotten to the Quorum of the 12 yet. And so they were like, it's about to go there. And then 2 weeks later, you should get your call. Maybe another month goes by, and we don't hear anything. And so then my stake president, he sent another email. He was like, what's going on? And they were like, we're so sorry. We're still just working through it. And we're like, okay. And then maybe 2 to 3 weeks after that, I think that totals up to close to 6 months. Um, we finally get, or no, we get a note that, okay, Corner of the 12 has it. They're working on it. You'll get your call. 2 weeks later, I get my call. And so I think at the time it was pretty frustrating, but I can look back now and recognize that despite the frustration, if I had not come here when I did, I'm not even sure I would have stayed the whole 2 years. I probably wouldn't have. So,
Um, well, thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's really important, the just school information to know and understand for anybody kind of in the same situation.
yeah.
And I'm impressed by your positive outlook. Um, I do want to, let's see, where should we go? Because part of me is interested in what you just said about you might not have been able to make it the full two
Mm,
years.
yeah.
Um, so I guess I kind of want to explore like the immediate blessings and challenges that you discovered being out on your mission presented.
Mm, sure. Kind of like right when I got there, what were some of the immediate things that, oh, this is good, and oh, this is going to be a challenge?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, that's a good question. Um, I think the number one thing that I was scared of was companions. That was the
Mhm.
number one thing. I was
Like
not,
accepting you.
oh, yeah, like, and just being able to actively work with, serve with, live with a companion who very well may have never met someone in the LGBTQ community, much less then be like, oh, like I thought about my trainer and tried to put myself in my trainer's shoes. Like, oh, you're getting a trainee and he's openly gay, and maybe you've never met a gay person before, and now you have to train him and love him and lift him up. And that was the hypothetical in my mind. Where like, oh my gosh, what if I get this trainer and he is just super standoffish, and we somehow have to live together, and one thing leads to another. He's reaching out to the mission president, and things just are a trash fire. That was my worry because you always think of the worst possibility, right? And so, thank goodness that's not what happened. I got there, and my trainer, he was this decently quiet kid who was originally assigned to serve in South Korea, and he was reassigned because this was in 2020. I started my mission in October of 2020. And so he came back to Anaheim to finish out his mission, and he was super quiet, which made me even more nervous because I was like, I have to come out to him now. And I had given my departing talk at home in my home ward just a couple weeks before. And in that talk, I talked a little bit about being openly gay and serving a mission, being open. And my bishop actually told me in my last visit with him, I was really close with my bishop, that he said, you should use your talk when you want to come out to your companions because that might be a great formulated way to share with them some of your experiences, as I had already condensed some of my experiences into that talk.
That's a
And so
cool
that's
That's
what
an
I
thing.
awesome.
did. And he,
Really good.
yeah, yeah. And he received it really, really well. I was really grateful for that. So that was one of the seemingly negative things that I thought would happen on my mission at the beginning, but it ended up being really positive.
Cool. And what's it been like coming out to other missionaries? Like how does that work? Like give us the nuts and bolts of like coming out to people in your district and zone and other companions.
That's a great question. It travels pretty fast. Word travels fast. So I didn't end up needing to come out to missionaries after my second transfer. There wasn't a need for it. In my first and second transfer, if I got a new companion, which I did once, or met new missionaries, I would only ever end up saying something if it came up in conversation organically because we were talking about maybe things from home if a conversation came up, because sometimes that happens. But after I told my trainers and just a couple other missionaries that I was close with in those first two transfers, I never had to tell anyone else after that over the course of my mission.
I'm wondering if you ever felt that you were like over identified with your orientation and that like Elder Carpenter
Ooh.
is missionary.
Yeah, I did feel some of that over my mission, especially in the first half of it. because while I was with my follow up trainer, if I could share a cool experience, this is one of the first experiences I had where I realized that, yes, God called me to come here and He called me to serve as me, as every wonderful part of me. I was in a personal study. We were about to start a personal study, and my follow up trainer, for those who don't know, a follow up trainer is basically just a second trainer that you get on your second transfer if you're not with your first trainer for all two transfers of training. Anyway, I was with him, and he said, for personal study, one of the best things that you can do is study for your friends that you're teaching and take an opportunity to receive revelation for them during this hour of personal study. And that really hit home. I was like, I'm going to try that. That sounds like such a good idea. And so that's what I did. I asked Heavenly Father to help me know what I should do for my friends. And maybe I should have been more specific in my prayer, because He did not give me revelation as to what I should have done for the friends that we were teaching at the time. But He did give me something to do that would allow me to be a part of the teaching and loving of many other people throughout my mission. Over the course of that personal study, a new function on Instagram had been introduced not long prior to this. It was the guides function, where you can put posts together into a guide. And I had this distinct thought. And our mission had Instagram at the time. We were one of the first to have it, which was super cool. And I had this distinct thought that I needed to make a guide of different posts and videos that had helped me before I came out on my mission. And I wasn't opposed to the idea, but it didn't seem like something for my friends. So I kind of just brushed it off, didn't think much of it. Maybe 2 days later, I get the same prompting again, but stronger. Brush it off again. The next day, I get the prompting so powerfully in personal study. I'm like, I have to do this. Like, the Lord is practically hitting me upside the head saying, I've told you to do this twice already. Go and do it. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. So I put some posts together, and I ended up making a video where I basically shared that, hey, my name is Elder Carpenter. I'm openly gay, and I hope to be able to love and lift and share some of my experiences as a missionary that can help other people see that they can serve too. And that video ended up getting a lot of traction that I had not anticipated. And there were a lot of people that reached out to me saying, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was possible. Like, how can you even, was your bishop supportive? Was your stake president supportive? All of these things. And it was a beautiful opportunity to be able to help a lot of those people.
And what was that like? It sounds like that was probably a little overwhelming, but also, well, just tell us what that was like to have this video you felt prompted to do that got way bigger than you expected.
Yeah, it was interesting because I felt overwhelmed because there were enough people reaching out in our mission, missionaries in the mission and in surrounding missions who were teaching LGBTQ individuals and had seen my video and said, hey, can you come and join us in a lesson? Can you help us out with this? Because we don't know how to do this on our own. We don't know how to answer their questions. And for maybe 2 or 3 transfers after that video was posted, I was a part of more LGBTQ related lessons as a missionary than I was with any other kind of visit on my mission. And that was incredible. It was one of the highlights of my mission, but it was way overwhelming. I wasn't sure how to feel about it at first, but it was a blessing for sure.
And here you are, like suddenly like looked at as the expert when you're a young missionary still.
Yeah, I was very much still figuring it out. People will be like, well, what do you say to this question about if someone, I remember one particular call, there were some missionaries in France who had seen my video, and they said, hey, can you join a video call with us? And I was like, sure.
You're
And it
like,
was
wee
this
wee.
individual. Yeah. Yes. And it was wonderful. It was so cool. We visited with this guy. He was not married yet, but he wanted to get married. And he was learning about the gospel. The missionaries were teaching him. And he loved everything. But the fact that he could not be married to his boyfriend in the temple, none of it really mattered anymore to him. And so, right at the beginning of this call, it was him saying, what do you expect me to do? What do you expect me to do in this church where everything feels right except for the one thing that to me feels most important? How am I supposed to choose baptism now? How can I do that? And how can I expect my boyfriend to make that decision as well, because he wants to be a part of this journey too? And at the time, my answer to them was mostly an I don't know. I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do. And we ended up having this really tender moment where I just shared with him, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I don't even know what I'm going to do when I get home after my mission. I'm still figuring that out. But there was a beautiful, beautiful compassion and spirit about this man and about his willingness to serve and love God. And something that I ended up telling him, I don't know if it was the spirit or not, but I ended up just telling him that as he continued to be a part of the people there in the church community that he had already met, that he would be able to strengthen them in ways that they had not yet been strengthened, and that that would be a blessing to him. And so it was a cool experience.
I'm so glad you shared that. That was really beautiful. And it struck me just how relatable that man's question was, because I feel like it's, within different ways, like, granted, it's not about baptism or joining the church for me, but that's a serious question that a lot of LGBTQ people have on their minds. And it kind of weighs on the heart where everything feels so, or most things about the gospel feel so filling and needed and congruent. But there's just one piece that's kind of right now, this eternal unknown. And I think that's really beautiful. And I really like the way you responded with your authenticity of, I don't know, but I know that being involved in this is something worthwhile, and that you will be fed and also be able to feed others.
Can I share a story?
Yeah.
So this isn't about being a missionary, but when I was living in Tucson, a gay member asked me to give a blessing, and so I and another gay member gave this gay member a blessing. I just remember the whole that moment, and it's like the words we felt inspired. Well, the words I felt inspired to say, just had this extra power because he knew that I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that friend of yours in France, could have asked a straight missionary that same thing. It probably wouldn't have had the same power as it did coming from you.
Yeah.
And this is just like evidence that when you you serving as all of you really helped. Well, who knows what the result of that was, but you were able to have that moment where the Spirit was there to teach.
Well, I think it's a testament of being an instrument in the Lord's hands, right? And I think we're different instruments, and we have different sounds, and we produce different rhythms, and if we're creating this symphony or this jazz band or whatever, God's going to need different people to give different sounds that are really going to resonate with individuals. And I really think there's something to be said as showing up as your full self, uninhibited, so that God can really use us as the instrument that He needs us to be. And then on top of that, one thing you said earlier, just you had this feeling, you made this guide and these videos, and it kind of just blew up into something, and all of a sudden there you were teaching a lesson in France, right? You kind of broke the bounds of the mission boundaries to this this bigger thing in this underserved population of, what do we do with gay people in the church? That is such a huge untilled part of the vineyard. And it reminded me of Doctrine and Covenants section 4, where it says, behold, the field is already to harvest, and lo, he that thrust in his sickle with his might, the same layeth up a sword, that he perisheth not, but bringeth salvation to his soul in the last day. But just this idea that the field was really ready to harvest, and the way that you're able to operate that field and work in that field is a way that's so needed. And that's something I've seen in my work, just stepping into this space, just by being myself, showing up. There's something about this experience, this identity, that gives us the tools to connect with people. And there's people who need to be connected with.
Yeah. And building on that, as you've been talking, Elder Carpenter, I've been thinking about 1 Corinthians chapter 12, where Paul talked to the body of Christ. And one of the verses there, it says that God has placed every member exactly where He wants it. And God sent you to Anaheim at the time you're there, and then gave you this clear prompting to do something. And then because of that, so many people have been blessed. You were placed exactly where God wanted you to be in the body of Christ.
And to do it, you don't even need the answers, right? These answers that answer to that man's question. I don't know it. You don't know it. And I don't
I
like,
know, but I'm not going to say it.
oh my gosh. Like, we don't know the answers, right? But it's just so beautiful. This concept is to serve and to work and find connection. You don't need the answers. You just need your authentic experience and like this charitable love for others. It's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Missionary work is not black and white. Oftentimes, people talk about church being a place where we need to have a multiplicity of color to make it a beautiful tapestry. And that's true. I agree with that. I feel that missionary work is the same. That every missionary, they come and they have a tag, and there's two names on that tag. Perhaps the most important name is Jesus Christ, but your name is there too. If I came out here simply with Jesus Christ's name on my tag, then I might as well do missionary work in the exact same way that my trainer did it. I would have no need to be Elder Carpenter, and I would have no need to meet the very specific people that the Lord put in my path to meet and to learn from and to invite to be a part of something that isn't just a good community. That's one of my favorite things about missionary work is that I've gained a perspective about the gospel that is so much bigger than just, oh, we need your perspective here. Because we do. We need diverse perspectives and mindsets so that we can grow. But when I invite someone to be baptized, I'm not doing it because I assume that I know that they or myself is going to get every answer right there. But I do it because I know that when they receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, their life will change. And I know that the celestial kingdom would not be complete without some color and without a few rainbows. So it's worth it to me to invite someone to the waters of baptism, not knowing exactly how I'm going to do it.
Elder Carpenter, thank you for sharing all that, and what it's like to, be this special instrument and inviting people to be baptized, even not knowing what's going to happen. How has it been for you working with people who have already been baptized and are members of the church? Like, how have they received you as an openly gay elder?
Thank you for asking. I really appreciate this question actually, because one of my favorite connections that I've made on my mission is with someone that I consider to be a very close friend now. I won't share her name because I have not been given permission to do so, but she was in the YSA ward that I served in for about 6 months. And she's a member and she's bisexual. And she, in that YSA ward and in the past, had had many negative experiences. And part of her going was simply because it was habitual, simply because she wanted to be, and she had friends. Um, but when I got to that ward, and it wasn't, this experience of me meeting her wasn't just about her seeing, oh, there's an openly gay missionary, maybe I can keep going and I can keep being strong. That was beautiful and that was necessary. But it was also really impactful for me, again, to say, oh, the Lord has a purpose for me to find people to teach who need the gospel, who might not receive it if otherwise. But there's also members that I need to learn from and who have perspectives that I haven't considered yet. We became close friends pretty quick, and we had a good few conversations where she just was raw and was mad about the church and shared things that really hurt her. And I didn't always have the right answer to give, and I didn't always know what to say. But there was something about just being there with her that made a difference. And I know, Ben, I actually finished reading your book just about a week ago, and that was something that you talk about often in your book. Is I noticed that that was a pattern, that multiple of your experiences you talked about just being there with someone and not needing to say something. And I've had a few experiences like that with this individual and some others.
So during this conversation, I've been thinking about my own mission, which was super long ago. Like, it would not have been possible to be out as a missionary like in 2003 and 2004. Like, that just wasn't a thing. But I had a companion who I was pretty sure was gay,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really kind of scary to me. Like, I wasn't, I wasn't, didn't have a crush on him. I don't think he had a crush on me. But I tried to reconnect with him like years later on Facebook, so we could like maybe talk about this, and he just kind of ignored my comment. Like, hey, I'm gay. What's new in your life?
Yeah.
It was and yeah, I just like I know it wouldn't have been possible, but I just like it would have been so nice to be able to have these kinds of experiences. I lived in the world I lived in, but it would have been so nice to get to live in your world.
I'm not
I'm
even
also
sure what to say to that. I appreciate it though.
just to kind of tag on to that, Ben, I'm thinking about my missionary experience, and I definitely wasn't out, and there were a lot of like pressures within like missionary culture that that made me feel like that was even more of an impossibility than it already was, right? I remember there was like this mission wide, like through the MTC and all through my mission, there was like this joke about the 2%. I don't know if this is still a thing. Have you heard this,
I've
Elder
heard of
Carpenter?
this.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was like apparently there was some statistic. I don't even know where it came from, or if someone just made it up, that 2% of missionaries are gay and they leave the church after they finish their mission and end
Mhm.
up like and the way it was used though was just like if there was an elder that you didn't like or were making fun of, you'd be like, oh, he's definitely 2%, like he's one of those gay missionaries, and it was just used so derogatorily. And every time, like I remember every time I heard someone say that, which was probably like weekly, right? It was like one of the missionary, there's a lot of weird jargon and slang, and there's like
Yeah.
this own vernacular and culture, but people would say that and I would just like get smaller, right? And I remember thinking like this is really inappropriate, like for missionaries to be saying this regardless of me, right? um, but I don't know. And so just like the contrast between your mission experience and mine um, is interesting. And I mean, I've been home 7 years. So
Long time.
Yeah.
anyway, you had thoughts about that?
Some of the most tender moments that I've ever had on my mission, I would say, are the moments where a missionary has come to me and has confided in me about their feelings and about the things that they've gone through, whether it be before their mission or things that they've heard on their mission. And I can say that I've heard about this 2% thing, but it was not something that I actively saw. Thank goodness. It was not something that I saw happen. And so we give thanks for that. But the big thing that, oh, go ahead.
Well, it's beautiful, and I think that's a testament to being out, really, because I mean, the glaring difference between you and I on our missions, Southern California, members of the church, you were out, I was not, right? And so I think there's something so beautiful about being your authentic self because it takes away some of these nasty cultural undercurrents that really damage a lot of people. Um, since coming out, I've talked to a couple other elders from my mission and a sister who also identifies LGBTQ, and we've kind of talked about how hard that was and how it made everything feel dangerous. But just by being there, just by being yourself, you're challenging anything negative there and making people think
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people are like, should I come out? Should I be open? And I'm like, you can do whatever you want, but it will fix the culture around you.
You're like the little bit of leaven that helps the whole loaf.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
He's like
No,
eight
yeah,
metaphors.
that's a beautiful way to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
I
was
agree with that.
Charlie and I were unleavened bread. We were crusty
Just
and
flat,
we
crusty.
cracked a lot and not crackers.
You're like a sourdough over here.
I like garlic bread personally. But
Ben's a saltine. I was a ranch.
No, I'm a salt and pepper.
Oh,
Anyway.
you're like a Tristan.
Yeah, okay. We gotta get back to what is it?
I love that for you.
So you had this beautiful experience with a bisexual member. What are the members of the church who aren't LGBTQ? How have they received you and you being out?
Ooh, I've gotten a variety of responses, which was to be expected, I think. I had members who came up to me understandably just confused, being like, hey, like, what was
What's
your
going on?
experience? Yeah, how did you get here? Like that's awesome for you, love that for you, but how are you even here? I've had members say that. I've had members who will actively avoid me.
Mhm.
And that doesn't happen too often, but it has happened where members just like, they will just actively will not like talk to me or if they see me coming, they will walk the other direction. That's happened before. I've had, thankfully, very few experiences where members have come up to me in person or shot me a message saying, "Hey, this is not something that you should be doing." Usually on social media, even I'll get messages from members being like, you know, "This is clearly a mistake." I had one guy make a comment, and he straight up said, "This is clearly a farce put on by the church, and you are like a decoy, like you're a fake for the church to try and make the church look good, I guess." And
Right.
so that kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Charlie, where you were like, I wonder if there's kind of this stigma that it's like, oh, Elder Carpenter is the gay missionary. He's the one who talks about this and who helps with this. And so sometimes I did get that feeling from members, even members that I didn't know, where it's like, oh, you're just this gay missionary that exists somewhere in the world and you're not anything more than that, which definitely did hurt some. So I did see some of that. Yeah.
Appreciate you being honest about that.
Yeah, as you've been talking about Carpenter, I just get this feeling like it's possible, in this situation I can be up. There's also there's a lot that comes with it, like a lot of
Yeah.
educating that you have to do, and you kind of have to be someone who's willing to take a lot of difficulty.
It sounds like it's almost kind of like uh, an analogy for the missionary process. Like there's like this extra work that you have to do, as like there was this extra interview that you had to do, like being gay. It in a way, like, it doesn't really fit. It doesn't fit in people's minds of what a missionary should look like, right? And
Right.
because of that, yeah, I can't imagine all the extra conversations and social complexity that you have to go through. And I appreciate you being honest about that. And I also appreciate you being willing to take that challenge on and seeing the beauty that it provides your experience.
Yeah. Can I add something to that you just said, if that's all right?
Yeah.
You just reminded me about my mission leaders because I've said it once and I'll say it again. They were genuine gifts from God to me. And I think that had I had the mission leaders before them, who I knew of, I would not. I don't think I would have made it even past them. My mission leaders, again, it's not my place to share their whole story, but what I can share is that they do have a direct family member who is a member of the LGBTQ community and who left the church some while ago. And this is someone very, very close to them. And they were, because of the experiences that they had with this family member, they were in a position to see me almost as though I was their own son, to be able to say, hey, we're going to help you be in a position where you can accomplish the exact same purpose that everyone else has. Because whether I'm gay, whether I'm anything else, my purpose as a missionary is to invite others to come unto Christ. And so they saw that vision and they understood that I had the same purpose as everyone else did, regardless of any extra weight that may come along with it. But I bring this up because one of the most beautiful moments I've had with my mission leaders has been, there was an interview that I had with my mission president. Our mission is so small that it allows my mission president to meet with every single missionary in the mission once in person every 6 weeks, which is pretty rare. That does not happen in most places. And I'm so fortunate for that. And there was one interview that I had, and he said, Elder Carpenter, I've been hearing from a lot of missionaries recently just little phrases like, oh, that's so gay, or things of that nature. Um, and that was triggering to him and his wife because they have this family member as well. And they knew that I was here too. And other missionaries in the mission who were not out of the closet, who were still doing their best to accomplish their purpose. And so he said, I would love if you could take a moment at a zone conference where we can get everyone together, the whole mission, and you can just take a moment and tell them a few of your experiences and let them know some things to avoid and some things to keep in mind when working with LGBTQ members or teaching LGBTQ individuals, or even if you might think that you have an LGBTQ companion, some things that you can do just to be kind and to be loving. And being able to do that at that zone conference was a huge highlight for me.
And it's so beautiful that they gave you the space to do that. It
Oh,
sounds like
yeah.
they really like you could fly. One more analogy.
Yes. Yes. And that never would have happened if I came out on my mission in the closet. And I'm so grateful for that.
So, kind of as we're wrapping up here, I'm curious to know if there are other out gay missionaries that you know of.
Ooh. Yes, there actually are. I was given permission to make a small little group chat with other openly LGBTQ missionaries that I have been able to connect with over social media. Yeah, it's which has been so cool. It's a very small group chat. It has like 8 people on it, and some of them are already home because they came out while they were on their mission, like in the last couple months. One of them hasn't even left on their mission yet, and myself, along with just a couple others, are serving, and not even all of them are out. So I guess among the group, um, maybe only 5 or 6 of them are actually out, and so it's a very small group. But we've created this as a way to be able to communicate with each other and just give each other support and love when things are hard, which has been a huge help. It's been really amazing.
That's amazing.
That's really
That's
cool.
really cool. And it's
Yeah.
nice to know that this isn't just happening in Anaheim, California. Like this is happening in a lot of other places where this like education and thinking twice, and it seems like this leavened bread is working in other places, and it just gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah. Can I share some context about that super briefly, if that's all right?
Yeah.
This was actually born because I had got permission to create a Facebook group that's private, and it's still currently private, that is for LGBTQ missionaries and allies and families and members, things like that, specifically in regard to missionary work. And this was meant to be a private group so that if missionaries who were in the closet could join this group and be able to even make anonymous posts where they could say, "This is my experience, this is what I'm going through, what can I do? How can I get through this?" And this group hasn't seen a ton of activity just because, again, it's hard to get word out about it when it's literally private because we want to
Right.
give that space for missionaries who aren't out. But as different missionaries did join this group, I learned that there were other missionaries who were out, and we created this group chat. Later, I ended up feeling, oh, well, how cool would this be if it were something that anyone could come and see? And I ended up thinking, well, I probably shouldn't do that on Facebook. I want to give them that space. But Instagram, on the other hand, could be a really good platform to create something that would allow members, non members, missionaries, and families and allies to see that there are LGBTQ missionaries. And so there is an Instagram that we have. It's called LGBTQ LDS Missionaries. And the whole purpose of it is to share experiences from LGBTQ missionaries and families and allies and mission leaders to show the miracles that they've seen as they've served as themselves.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, nice. Yes.
Cool.
There's only 2 posts, but
Well, it sounds like there'll be more.
That's cool.
yes.
Well, also like sharing the gospel through social media, like oh my gosh, I mean I shouldn't say this, but some of the missionary reels and TikToks I see are like so cringy to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
who allowed this? But like I
Yeah.
love that you found a really meaningful, new, useful way to implement social media and like have a really important purpose. That's really cool. Kudos to
Yeah.
you. Very impressed.
Well,
And
thank
and
you.
Shay,
I think, yeah.
if people want to find you on Instagram, how can they find you?
Oh, yes. My handle is at I am not ashamed, which is a handle that I created like, I'm not even kidding, 6, 7 years ago. And I didn't even think that it would have any type of implication to kind of be like, oh, I did it on purpose to say, oh, I'm not ashamed, right? Just because my first name is Shane. But I never thought that it would kind of work so well with the fact that I'm an openly gay missionary. And it's like, I'm not ashamed to be who I am. And I'm not ashamed to invite people to something that I know isn't perfect, but that I know also will change their life in a very eternal way. So it kind of just went right along with that, which I really loved. But yes, that's my handle.
Well, Elder Carpenter, it sounds like you are not ashamed because you're Elder Carpenter right now for 2 more weeks.
Yes, that is true. Yes.
Well, if I could just kind of tie this all together, as we've been talking, just the principles you've been sharing. If someone were to ask, "Can I be out of my mission?" I would point them to what you said about, you felt this prompting to come out, while you were listening to Let It Go, and then you felt this prompting. Not an important detail, but and then you felt this prompting to share this reel that just like wouldn't go away, to share your story. And so I guess the answer is let the spirit guide you. Let the spirit guide you to know what to do, and trust that, and in whatever ways we're called to serve by God, we can be that little bit of leaven to leaven the whole loaf, and we rest in our sickle with our mind and do all these good things. So,
Yes.
Elder Carpenter, as we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share that you haven't gotten to?
Yes, I cannot take the opportunity to be able to join both of you today and not share this experience. And it's been going through my head as we've been talking. Near the beginning of my mission, after I sent that video out, there were some missionaries in our mission who serve on Catalina Island. And that's just off the coast of Long Beach. And they were teaching a man there. He gave me permission to share his story. His name is Chuck Lydell. And I think he's 75 years old. And he was found by missionaries quite some time ago, like 15 years ago originally, for a brief period of time. And it didn't really go anywhere. And then now, probably about 2 years ago, he was found again on Catalina Island. And Chuck, he is gay, and he had come out to his faith group there on Catalina Island, and he was quite literally shunned for it by all the people there that he knew. And it was really tragic for him. And so when he met the missionaries, there seemed to be some amount of hope, because the gospel is wonderful, it brings joy, it brings happiness. But he did not see how he could be a member of the church for the same reasons that the man that I met in France did not want to get baptized. Along with many other reasons. He did not like a lot of the baggage that comes with church history, because there's a decent bit of it. If you look for it, you'll find it, as you will with any church. And so he was not okay with the fact that for a period of time, men of African American descent could not have the priesthood. He was not okay with the fact that women could not hold the priesthood. He was not okay. He didn't even like the way that the church was structured in many ways. And of course, he didn't like the fact that he felt and was told that he could not only not have a boyfriend or be sealed in the temple, which we worked through the boyfriend part, but he just felt that he could not be a part of this. And the missionaries reached out to me. I joined them. And I can say with some confidence that I don't think I actually ended up making much of a difference. We became very close friends, but my story did not impact him in a way that allowed him to make the decision to be baptized, to join the church. We became good friends, but that was about it. There wasn't really anything else there. And so a little while later, the missionaries there, they were doing a lot of praying, and they felt strongly that what they needed to do was that they needed to invite Chuck to just read the scriptures with them every day, and that they would read the entire Book of Mormon in a 6-week period. And he said, sure, why not? And so they met with him almost every single day, and they ended up reading the entire Book of Mormon in about 6 weeks. At the end of that 6-week period, they invited him to pray about it, as is found that promise in Moroni chapter 10, to pray to know with a sincere heart and real intent if the things that you read are true or are not true. And he did indeed take on that challenge. This experience is really powerful to me because he gained a witness shortly after that was completely undeniable to him, that the book that he had read was revealed by God, and that it was something that he had given to Chuck at that time, that he may know the plan of salvation, that he may know that the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ happened and is real, that Joseph Smith wasn't perfect, but he was a prophet of God. His concerns did not go away. He still didn't like the fact that women couldn't hold the priesthood, or that men of African American descent could not have the priesthood at a certain period of time. And he did not like the fact that he couldn't be sealed in the temple. But after he read that book, he knew that it was true. And I don't think that answer is always going to be something that everyone reaches. But his willingness to say that I still don't like a whole lot about this church, but I'm going to get baptized because to me it's about a whole lot more than just the church. It's about Jesus Christ, and it's about the fact that I'm choosing to follow him because he gave me these missionaries who allowed me to have this book that somehow, some way, despite everything that he'd heard about it, it was still true, and it made a difference in his life. That's the type of faith that sometimes I don't even know if I have. And so he ended up getting baptized just a couple weeks later, and I was able to go to Catalina Island, and he was baptized on the beach. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. Now fast forward, there's one more part to this story, and this happened just a couple days ago, actually. Chuck went through the temple to get his endowments maybe a week or two ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, as he'd been a member for a year at this point. And as he went through, it was a wonderful experience in his own words, but it also shattered him. And he felt like it was just reinforced that he could not be with a man in the eternities. As we learn about God's plan, as we go into the temple. And he just felt like it was another slap to the face that you cannot be yourself, and that, yes, God may have made you this way, but who am I to expect that I can be exactly who I want to be in the way that the Lord knows I can be? And so he described how after he left the temple, there were about 3 days where he felt entirely crushed and just destroyed. That there wasn't any more hope to keep going. In the church, even as a person of faith, he just felt that his faith had been completely rocked to its core. And on the morning of the third day, he woke up and he had this beautiful experience where he just looked up and he said, Heavenly Father, God, I don't know what your plan is for me, but give me something because I can't keep doing this. And this thought came to his mind about something that he had been really passionate about in the past, which was to help youth and children in the LGBTQ community who had been kicked out of their homes and were living in foster care centers, things like that. Because when he was young, when he was 6 years old, he had an inkling that he was gay. And he had a conversation with his mother about that. And it did not go well. She was very abusive. And so the rest of his life, up until, like I mentioned earlier, just a few years ago, when he came out officially, he just lived his life in shame. And he felt that he could resonate with children and youth who have undergone a lot of abuse. And so this idea came into his head, accompanied by the Spirit, that he could be the means by which the Lord could help other youth know that they are loved of God and that they have purpose and that he created them as they are. And he got this overwhelming feeling that and this is his experience, not mine, but he got this overwhelming feeling that if God did not want him to have a man as his eternal partner, that this would be a way in this life that he could fulfill, or rather fill, this hole in his heart that had existed for so long. And it worked for him. He felt the Spirit. He felt as though God had given him something. And so just a couple of days ago, Chuck had called me and he told me this experience. And he said, Elder Carpenter, I have found my purpose and I know what I can do. And I don't think that his purpose is going to be the same answer that almost anyone else is going to get. It's very much his own. But to me, it was an example that the Lord is very individual. And he knows Chuck, and he knows me, he knows both of you, and he knows every single one of his children perfectly. I don't think I have the courage yet. I'm working on it. But the courage yet to be able to take an answer like that from God. I don't know if I'm in a position like that yet. But I hope that one day I can have a relationship with God like Chuck does and be able to trust in him so wholeheartedly that something that he can't have isn't enough of a reason to keep following him and to keep loving his children and serving them. So I hope I can follow Chuck's example. And I hope that all of us can do that too, because he's pretty incredible.
Thank you for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this or other episodes, please consider leaving a review, following us on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook at Questions from the Closet, or sharing this episode with someone you love. And, as always, please remember that we do not represent the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or Brigham Young University. We are not trying to be prescriptive or tell anyone what to think or what to do.
You heard 3 perspectives today, and there are many, many more. We encourage you to listen to other voices and hear a wide variety of experiences. If you would like to submit a question or share a comment about today's episode, you can email us at questionsfromthecloset@gmail.com. Until next time.